Hey everyone, welcome back to Ask Amy. I have a question today from Sam, and it's about loneliness. So Sam says, "I feel quite lonely most of the time. I had a lonesome childhood, and I don't have many close friends. Now wherever I go in terms of my job, I'm afraid of not being able to meet people and make friends. All of this tempts me to just stay where I am, which would make mean making no progress. So basically, I want to ask how to be strong as a person and not be afraid of this loneliness." So I love this question, Sam. It's one that I know is on people's minds, but I don't hear about it all that much. And so I was really glad that you put it out there, so other people can hear it as well. So I want to I want you to consider something, and it may sound crazy and it may sound totally off, and there's no pressure in this at all. So you don't have to agree, you don't have to believe me. Just see if you can kind of play along. What if loneliness, the feeling of loneliness, has nothing to do, like, what if it's the feeling of loneliness is completely independent of whether you're physically with people or not? It's completely independent of how many friends you have. Uh, so what I'm saying is, what if this feeling of loneliness has nothing to do with the outside circumstances? And again, that might sound kind of extreme when I say it that way. It has nothing to do with that, but just lean into this. Just consider, like, how can they be kind of separate? Because we all know that sometimes we can have a feeling of loneliness when you're in a super crowded place, right? You can, or when you're in a close relationship, or when you have a giant family, or any of that. We can feel lonely in any moment, and we can feel connected in any moment. So we can be completely physically alone. We can have no family and few friends and still feel really connected. And in fact, people talk about this all the time. I mean, this is what happens when people go out in nature a lot of times, is you feel this connection. It's when our mind settles down and we feel this sort of bigger oneness or connection. It has nothing to do with a physical body next to you or friends or relationships or any of that. So again, I'm not saying that those things don't matter in life. I'm not saying don't make friends, none of that. Just for right now, just to kind of kick this off, I want you to just see if you can consider that they're really independent. There's some degree of independence there. That a feeling of feeling loneliness isn't about, it's not as cut and dry as it seems. It's not about having friends or being with people physically. So if it isn't about all those circumstances and physical closeness, what is it about? What is this feeling of loneliness? And I want to suggest that it's it's a mind created story. It's a psychological experience that comes when we're very much in our psychological experience, basically. So each of us has a brain and a mind that is always talking about us, and it's us opposed to them. So the more that our mind is talking about me, all about us, and I am very separate, I feel and seem to be very separate from everyone else and everything else. There's all these separate objects and people and all of that in the world, and a lot of separation. Everybody's brain does that. Everyone's mind has these conversations. We have identities that do feel separate. That is part of the human experience, is the experience of separateness. But we also have this ability to see that as a psychological experience. To see that, oh, my mind is always talking about me versus them, and I'm always thinking I need people near me or friends or whatever your mind is telling you is going to help you feel not lonely. But what if that's just a mind conversation? That's just how a mind talks and what a mind says. And even though that is part of our human experience, is this psychological experience of separateness, I really, Sam, want you to lean in and just get really curious about what if that's just a psychological experience? What if what is true of you and all people is that we have this shared essence, and we're really one. I mean, it's not even to say that we're all connected. That doesn't even really make sense. We are one shared essence. And as one shared essence, we all are connected by nature. And again, important to recognize and acknowledge, we have a mind that will create tons of experience that says we're not. So, what if that's the case? What if you have all the connection, all the oneness that you could ever possibly imagine? And you have a mind that's always saying, I'm alone, and where are the people, and I don't make friends easily, and I had a lonely childhood, and all the stuff a mind says. But see, our mind is always talking, it's always coming and going. It changes its story. Some days that those things feel really true and important and they need to be talked about. Other days they're nowhere on your mind. Other days you're sitting completely alone and you don't feel lonely. So it's really something to get curious about. We don't want to take this loneliness thing, these feelings that your mind labels lonely, at face value, because that's not accurate. It can't possibly be. Again, if it were about you being alone or not having enough friends, then you'd feel it all the time across the board, and you don't. You don't. You have moments, I know you do, everyone does, of not feeling lonely, even when we're completely physically alone, and of the reverse. So we want to get kind of curious about how there's this experience that shows up through you, and then your mind talks about it. Everyone's mind does this. We feel something, and then our mind jumps in and labels it and says, oh, I'm lonely. Oh, I don't have any friends. Oh, I don't know how to make friends. That's a constant habitual conversation that we do not have to buy. We don't have to believe that, and it's not the truth. And I want you to get curious about that yourself. I can tell you that, but get curious about that yourself. Like, what if this is just how your mind talks, kind of on repeat, coming up with theories about your childhood and what it means and your friends now and all of that. And what if all of that is a giant story that happens for a good reason? It's your brain trying to make sense of some feeling, some experience, but it also behooves you big time to see beyond that a little bit, to see that maybe that's just a mind talking, and maybe there are feelings of connection and oneness that are there beyond all that psychology. So, Sam, because you've heard a bit of what I talk about, we want to flip everything. You say, I don't have many close friends, and I'm afraid of not being able to meet people and make friends. So it's almost like, in reading your question, connection and friendships and relationships and closeness, they feel like a thing you need to go out and do. And not just you, Sam. They feel like that for most people, I would say, a lot of the time, right? It feels like, oh, I don't have this. There's some feeling I want that I don't have. Therefore, I need to go out and make it happen. That's pretty much how every mind I've ever met works. But okay, and I want you to flip this and consider that it's the opposite. We come connected. We, by default, by nature, we are one. We are connected. Look at a baby or a small child. Like, they have no problem making friends. You didn't either. And we don't lose that. We just start to get caught up in our thoughts that say that we don't have that anymore and now it's hard for us. So it looks like a thing we need to go out and get or make happen. But truly, it's already there. We're just thinking over it. It completely flips how things appear on their head. I mean, it's a complete reversal of how it appears. So reflect on that a little bit, Sam. Really consider. I know all the evidence. All the evidence is there to say you're alone and you don't have a lot of friends and all that stuff. I get it. But consider that that's your mind and its habitual story about your aloneness. And what if it's not hard at all to make friends? Your mind just tells you it is, and maybe it sets you up for it to look or feel a certain way. But what if connection is your nature? It is your fundamental nature. It is so simple. that we can't possibly even see how to do it, but that doesn't mean it's not, that's just because it's so natural and innate that we can't see how to do it. There is no how to do it. It's like what wants to happen through us. And I hear that, again, psychologically, you might get around people and then start feeling awkward and not know what to say. And yeah, all of that is this habitual stuff. But even while that's happening, Sam, you can know, okay, but we're all the same. We're all one. And you just keep leaning into it. And there's something about seeing this for what it is, not not honoring it and respecting it all the time and listening to it and staying in, which is what you've been doing, and removing yourself from people, but seeing it as something that's just a machine trying to help you, trying to protect you, but that you don't need that protection. And then getting curious about just how natural and innate connection is. I think you'll start to see that it is much easier than your mind will let you believe, than your mind will tell you it is. And feelings of loneliness come and go. It's just a feeling, and your mind says, oh, I'm lonely. It's because of this. There's no people around. Like your mind will attach stories to it. But lean into those too. Feel the energy of that feeling, and don't take it at face value. Like, what if this is just the way experience habitually shows up through me? Maybe I'm not so lonely. Maybe I do feel connected, and like I have, some closeness with everyone in the world, with life around me, and and see how that starts to shift things. So thank you, Sam, for sending this question. Such a common one, I know, a very important question, and I hope it's been helpful for you and for others. So send your questions about anything to Ask Amy at thelittleschoolofbigchange.com, and I'm here every Monday at 1 o'clock Eastern speaking to them. So have a great week, everyone. Thank you.